If you knew the trouble that we had getting this podcast just started, because when Kirk and I get together, it's just a free for all. And if you've been around Kirk, Kirk is a walking free for all. I hope that's a positive statement to say.
See, we need to edit that out too.
No, we're not editing that out. So the reason, Kirk, the reason I wanted to sit down with you, and as our audience is listening today, I have lots of artists on the show. We had our Great For Him episodes that aired and were wildly popular. And then I had Roger Breland on a few episodes back, and that was a hugely popular episode. And it just reminded me that there are so many stories left on the table, because we kind of get serious about careers and what we've walked through. There's just this subculture of people who have done what we've done, and there's very few of us out there, especially from back in the era of the 80s and 90s when things were a little bit different. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I just thought it would be fun for our audience to just maybe sit on the couch next to us as we kind of reminisce and share some stories about what we've been through and what life was like back in those days. So welcome to the 1 Degree Vanity podcast, my touring buddy, my brother, Kirk Sullivan. So I like your studio set up there. I like that. I like that cool For Him poster that you've got
Oh
up
yeah,
there behind you.
well, that's the one I had up when we were doing the Hymns album, and it's still on there. It's got your name up in tape down there. It's got Joe Dirt
because of my mullet.
It's still there. I didn't take it off. It's still there.
So that picture, for those of you who are going to watch the video, and just let me remind you, if you want to watch the video, you have to become a premium subscriber. So I'll explain that in the intro and the outro as well. But on that photo, that was taken between, I believe, or maybe right after the Face the Nation album, or right before the Face the Nation album. It was an extra photo shoot that we did. And if you can see this picture, I am the same height as everybody else in the group. The reason is because I was standing on an apple crate, and which was fine. But when this picture ran in CCM magazine as an ad, they didn't crop out the apple box crate. It's just one of those things where you realize I'm really not in control of my career here. There are so many people that have their hands in what they're doing that I just want to survive this.
Well, didn't they do that on a Young Messiah shoot?
Probably.
Yeah, they did.
Well, I just remember this picture here just going, well, gee, thanks a lot. She just basically told everybody I'm like the shortest person in Christian music.
What do they think? What were they thinking? It's what I want to know. Like, yeah, leave it in, take it out, leave it in, I'll leave it in.
Yeah, I just, that's kind of the Wild West days back then. I say this a lot on this podcast, but the 80s and 90s in Christian music was kind of the Wild West. And, just there's so much going on and so many artists out there and so many projects coming out. I mean, it was really great, but, stuff like that just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But
yeah, I mean, I remember us doing this is not necessarily funny, but coincidental. I mean, we're doing the new Young Messiah photo shoot, because we're the new guys, and I've got a couple of new artists in. And so they do a group stuff. They do, they shoot everybody, and then they do a group. They do each artist individually. So we had just got through shooting, and I'm walking on my way out. They had snacks, but I went to go get lunch. And I passed this girl, and she goes, "Kirk?" And I go, "Pam?" And our management team was Atkins Muse. And the Pamela Muse went to the college I did, except I was 13 when I started taking voice lessons, and my voice teacher was the director of the PR group that went out. So I knew her and her brother, but I had no idea that Muse was Pamela Muse.
Wow.
So it was like, I hadn't seen her. I was 33 then. I hadn't seen her since I was 13. That was an interesting thing.
We ran across a lot of people that either we knew back in the day, they all kind of converged into the Christian music industry, or people who would go on to be big names. Do you remember when we would go over to I can't remember the name of the company. It was our first financial management company. And we would go into their offices every now and then, just sit down, look over the books and
That was
forecasts and stuff.
what you're talking about is the first time we went in.
Well, okay, but I mean, we would go in there, and I just remember there was a receptionist, and when we would walk by, I remember Mark would always say, "Wow, she's pretty."
No, it was me. I
Oh, is
go,
it you?
who the heck is that?
Yeah,
Is what I wanted to know.
yeah, and it
Good.
turned out to be
Shania.
Shania Twain. Yeah, she
Well,
was.
his response was, he says, well, yeah, she's very pretty and she's this awesome singer, but she doesn't want anybody to know that she sings. And I thought, well, I don't care if she sings or not.
And of course, you were single at the time. You're like, okay,
Exactly.
yeah, oh, you missed your opportunity there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, of course, yeah. Well, yeah. She needed mutt laying in her life for sure.
Well, for a short period of time, anyway.
Yeah. Well, what I want to do is I just want to tell some stories here, just like we always do. You know, we did a little thing a few years ago, maybe not that long ago, maybe a couple of years ago um, for Carmen's tribute. After Carmen had passed away, Stephen Yake did a video for TBN and asked us to come in and sing a couple of Carmen songs. And I remember getting there the night before into Nashville, and we hung out in a hotel room, the four of us, to go over the songs and kind of rehearse and stuff. But I just remember we may have rehearsed for maybe 30 minutes and told stories and laughed until 3 a.m. I mean, it was one of those things where I was like, I miss getting together and singing with you guys, but really, I just miss hanging out because we have so many stories. We laugh so much, we have survived so much together. And I just thought I would give our audience just a little peek at some of those things that we laugh about and some of the things that people would never know that, again, putting a bunch of people on a bus for a bunch of years, it's a unique experience for sure. Even going, and you had a different experience than I did when you were first in Truth back in the mid 80s. The bus wasn't quite as nice or as updated, but I want to know about your first experience of getting on a tour bus and how you survived that.
Well, my first experience prepared me for the second one. I wouldn't have made it the second one if it hadn't been for the first one. Everybody, I get on the bus and everybody, I'm low man on the totem pole because I didn't have the experience everybody else had already been and had 4 years of college. And
we're talking about Truth here. And I had the same experience. Yeah. When I came in, I just felt like a peon, and, you kind of have to work your way up in that little closed in society, but go ahead.
I felt like I had to work my way up for the first 2 years. There's so many, but back in the day, I mean, we used to have the road manager would stand on the outside of the bus right next to it, and he would make sure that you didn't have tennis shoes on and that you had a shave. So I mean, it was
a shave.
That's right. If you weren't clean shaven, he'd go, "You lose your razor." I mean, it was
wow.
Yeah, it was like being in the Marines. And being on time and all those things. So I say that to say this: we're in Canada. We're doing a Canadian tour, right? And we have this, for lack of better terms, a road manager, and so he was very a stickler with time, and so we had a day off, and so it wasn't me. We had a couple of people late, and so we're going to Victoria Island.
Uh-huh.
And so we get there, we're just a nudge late, and so the road manager is not happy with a couple of people that were late. So he decides he's going to ask everybody how they felt about the people who were late, how they felt about that. And as he's exercising his authority, we see the ferry pull right off. And he asked Paul Lynch. Paul Lynch is funny. He goes, "Well, Paul, what do you think about it?" He says, I don't know what to say, but while we're talking, our vacation just pulled out from port. Yeah, it's a location joke, but it was
Yeah.
hysterical.
Oh, that just happened all the time. There was because, you think about it, the truth experience was what, 20 to 25 people on a bus at the same time, all from different
Right.
walks of life, all trying to prove themselves, all looking for some sort of authority or, to move. We talk about moving up the ladder a little bit in, being the one who gets to sing the next big song or whatever. Uh, and it did create a little bit of a chaos, you know, and especially if you got personalities in charge that really didn't quite know what they're doing. They were faking it till they made it, which, kind of all of our stories, but there were a lot of people in charge who probably shouldn't have been in charge.
Well, there you go. And you're looking back and going, as if when you were in truth, you looked at the thing like, well, why did he pick him? Well, then you get out and get into real life scenarios. You're thinking, how did Roger do that? How did he pick him? It was the luck of the draw sometimes.
Yeah.
Who was in? He would get people on the road, and then they didn't work out. 2 days later, we were dropping them off at their house. And now that's funny. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just all kinds of stuff. The host
Yeah. Because
homes
everybody
were,
survived and,
yeah,
yeah.
and it wasn't the end of the world. We had the host homes were funny too.
Oh
Um,
man, that's a whole other deep dive, but let's go there since you brought it up.
well, I remember one time we were in North Carolina. It's
Well,
in winter.
before you share that story, for people who don't understand what host homes are, you probably do from that phrase, but we didn't stay in hotels. It wasn't until we were in For Him that we actually got hotel rooms, and that was a
Well, the married couples
big
got,
deal. Well, not all married couples. Jackie and I didn't. We rotated. Yeah,
well, rotation,
yeah,
rotation.
but every 3 or 4 nights because there were like four married couples on the road at the time we got married, and we, once every 4 nights is not a lot. That means 3 nights in a host home. So what would happen was you would finish the concert, you would come down. Everybody, once the truck was loaded up and everything was done, we would come back into the auditorium of the church wherever we sang. And I remember it being Alicia Williamson at for a long stretch there. Uh, she was the one who would pair up host families with truth members. And so what they would do is, a church would bring us in, organization would bring us in, and then they would, to save money, they would reach out to families and say, "Hey, would you host, 1, 2, 3, or 4 truth members? Take them home with you, give them a place to sleep, do their laundry," which was huge because, if you're not going to, we were on the road, what, 350 days a year.
Yeah,
So that was your home. You had to do your laundry on the road. You had all, none of us were running businesses or anything just because there was not enough. We weren't making enough money to have anything else on the side, but it was our whole lives. And so the quality of the host home was huge because it was a place where you could go and be comfortable for, or maybe be by yourself for a few hours and get your laundry done, maybe get something really good to eat, a good home cooked meal. And so they would, Alicia would have this list and say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and they would raise their hand and say, "Okay, you're taking Kirk and Andy home tonight." And so we would say, "Okay, come meet us by the side of the bus. We'll get our luggage, put it in your car, and then you go home with people you've never met before." And so there's a lot going on there for a lot of those situations, and some of them are really, really good. I will say, a lot of them were very good. In fact, even today, I'll be somewhere and they're like, "You probably don't remember this, but you stayed at my house,
yep.
in 1989 in Birmingham, Alabama." And I'll just be like, "Oh, thank you so much." But then, there are a bunch that stick in our brains. It's always the bad situations that you remember. You don't remember all the good ones. So I just wanted to set all that up as we get into host home stories. So back to North Carolina.
There's a term for that, and I don't know what it is. We'd have to call Marty to get the term. So, but anyway, we're in North Carolina, and how many? There were four of us, and it's dead of winter, North Carolina. We go home, and these people they really didn't have anything, and And I appreciate that. They really there's not a lot they can do at the church or financially, and so their heart was, well, we'll reach out our home to these guys, and that'll be a minister, and it was.
Yes.
You know, I'm not ungrateful. So we get there, we get there. Of course, I was not raised with any kind of alcohol in the house, so we go in the house, and the guy has a small brewery in the living room
Oh my
with
gosh.
he's got like 4 or 5 big, you know, those big jugs that the water comes in.
Uh-huh.
Those were all dripping wine, fermenting, and then he had 4 or 5 more brewing the beer. No, we didn't ask for any. We didn't get any because
Uh-huh. Sure. Sure
So
you didn't.
no, I don't know. No. So it's cold in the house. We're breathing. You can see your breath. Well, what
Oh
had
man.
happened? They find the daughter told us, hey, you know, we didn't have the money to pay the power bill.
Oh.
So that night we go to bed, and thank God they had blankets. I had a stack of blankets like that to keep me warm. And then they had another bedroom where one of the other guys, but the other 2 guys, and one of the other guys was Mike Childers, and they're in a camper outside with no heat.
Oh my gosh.
So we get up, when you wake up in the morning and you can see your breath. Okay, well, that's good. I can get up and put my clothes on, but here's the deal: is that you got to go take a shower, all that. You haven't lived till you walk in a shower and you get in the shower and you're breathing smoke in the shower. Oh, and it was a real treat getting out
Yeah.
because it's cold anyway. I mean, I've got a little portable heater in my master bathroom, and it goes, and it's still chilly getting out of the shower. I mean, I don't want to be graphic, but that was really interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Freezing to death.
Man, I remember so many times. Again, you remember the bad ones more than the good ones. I just remember so many times just not having clean sheets, like crawling into bed after a really long day, and there's like cereal, and because you're usually they'll move the kids out of the room you're going to stay in, so it's pink walls and teddy bears and all that stuff like that, and you pull it back, and they haven't changed the sheets in 2 weeks, and you're like, I'm sleeping in somewhere where a 4-year-old has peed the bed a couple of times, and you're just like, I just want to go to sleep in a clean place, and
Right?
that must have happened. I can't tell you. I lost count of how many times I would pull back the sheets and go, or pull back the cover and go, nope, put the cover back on. And I would sleep under towels because I knew at least I would smell the towels and go, well, at least the towels are clean.
Exactly.
And, and then, boy, if you ever got to go to the hotel, even if it was, and we're not staying at Marriott's and Hilton's. I mean, it's like Red Roof Inn and Nights Inn and
If
some
it
of
was
those
that
places.
good,
Yeah. And you're kind of like, oh, thank God.
I
At
didn't
least I
stay in
know
a
there's been a
hotel
maid in here.
I didn't stay in a hotel in Truth until not on a regular concert night until I was in Truth the second time. There was no the single people, and at one point, 1983, we had 6 married couples on the road
Wow.
because Dan and Donna Oxley came back in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was when we got the van from what Mark IV, Mark III, what was it?
Mark 4. Yeah.
Mark IV. That's
Uh-huh.
when, because we had
Out of
we
Ocala,
had
Florida.
yeah, we had 30 people on the bus. So,
Mm.
but um,
Yeah,
bumped it up.
that bus experience was, you look back on it now and just go, it's a miracle we survived because again, everybody's under the age of 30 pretty well, except for Lanny. Lanny was the only guy that was ever in his, was so much older than the rest of us. And, but, we had, you mentioned it, we had a bus, 40-foot bus. We had a Mark IV conversion van. And we also had a tractor trailer, 40-foot tractor trailer. And so we were the drivers. Now, I never drove the truck. I drove the bus a little bit right towards the end of Truth. And if you want to listen to the For Him podcast, you can hear us talk about, the first bus that we had in For Him. That was interesting. But there were all night drives. So we would finish a show. And a lot of times, if it was more than a day's drive to get to where we were going, we would have to drive all night long. So that just meant there was one of the girls would stay up with the bus driver in
Yeah.
3-hour shifts and keep them awake and talk to them. And then somebody drove the conversion van. And then we had a truck driver who was, one of us. A lot of times I just remember it being, um, Brian Smith for a long time, who was one of our trombone players. And we can talk about Brian here in a minute. And yeah, um, Gina Walker's husband. Mike
Mike.
Walker. Yeah, Mike Walker drove the truck as well. So those of us that didn't drive, let me just set this up for you. Those of us that didn't drive would have to get up there were 3-hour shifts. So you would probably pull out of the parking lot, let's just say at midnight. So there's the midnight to 3 shift. Then there's the 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift and the 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. shift. And so you would get up and ride with the person in the van or with the person in the truck to keep them company and keep them awake. And Kirk, by the time you came back into the group when I was there in 1987, you were making about 10 times what I was making. And
I was
so, so you had a little more cash in your pocket, and you played that really, really well, to where
John Thorne was my guy.
John Thorne, who went on to play with White Hart and Margaret Becker, and he was our bass player for a long time. And John probably took half your money every week.
Well, John had a car, and he wasn't able to sell it for some reason, and so he was always looking for extra ways to make cash. And so he would come up to me a week before we're doing, hey, we got an all-night drive going. You got somebody? He goes, no, I paid $15, which was
huge
money back then.
Yeah.
So he would write. Well, I have a really funny. I was driving the bus, and Gina Walker, who you were just talking about, was driving. And here's the thing: is the drivers had to drive 3 hours, but the girls only had to stay up for 2. So anyway, we're sweating and we're both blitzed because we've had, I don't know, 2 or 3 all-night drives in a row. And so I'm driving and I'm doing this, right? And you can't get somebody else because they're going to do the same thing. They're tired too. So Gina is in the buddy seat, and I'm talking to her. I can't remember what I said, and I hear her say, yeah, but then I heard it, and she fell asleep in mid-sentence. And I'm like, trying to hold it because there are people 3 feet behind me sleeping, right? So for some reason, I said something to her, and I watched her. I turned to see her response, and I see that, yeah, and then it's Roger's fault because and so at that point you're giddy. You're giddy because you're so tired, and we're laughing our brains out. And we have Mike Childers in the back, who was the drummer and our music director for quite a while. Shut up! We're trying to.
But he was sleeping by me. He was my sleeping partner. I'm going to say this very carefully. It sounds really weird, but you had. Oh my gosh. As I say it, it sounds so weird. But we had sleeping partners, and because there were only a couple of bunks on the bus, and that's where the backup driver would sleep and the road manager, they got those perks. The rest of us would sleep on the couch would pull out and make like a little bit bigger than a twin bed. And then the dinette would fold up and turn into a bit of a twin bed. And then you had these berths that came down out of the ceiling, and people could sleep on that, and they were about a little smaller than a twin bed. But everybody kind of had their place where they slept every night. Well, Mike Childers and I were sleeping buddies, and so we would sleep head to foot. So
I was about to say,
I just want, there's nothing weird going on, but you would, that you just got comfortable kind of having those people that you knew, you could get a good night's sleep and be, in very close proximity to. And so it just kind of became a routine. But yeah, I can totally see Mike, just going, shut up in there, shut up there.
Well, here's the thing is that when we all had a set place that we usually slept. So the big deal is when we're doing an
Hmm.
all night drive, and Andy remembers this well, is you get to call where you're going to sleep, but you can't call the place you're going to sleep until you hear the driver click it into drive,
Yep.
and then everybody screams at the
Oh,
same
it was
time.
a it was
I,
a scene.
I will never
Yeah.
forget outside middle couch.
Yeah.
It
I
was it
never.
was me and
Yeah.
Dave Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
So Dave, when I came back, Dave and Tammy had just gotten married, right?
Hmm.
They've been married a few months when I came back. So Tammy pulled me over to the side one time. She goes, man, I'm really sorry about Dave. And I go, what are you talking about? She goes, well, usually every all night drive, I have to come over to your bunk and take Dave's leg off of yours.
He's
Go, I
snuggling.
never,
He's snuggling with you.
dude. I remember that. That reminds me. One night, um, I'm in the bunk where I am, and of course, where I'm sleeping, I can reach out my arm to the right and touch the bathroom door, no problem. Don't even have to extend my arm all the way. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Oh yeah.
So I hear something, and it's Gina Walker again, and she goes to the little girl's room, right? So I don't remember what it was. Oh, we dodged a deer or an elk or something and did one of these.
Yeah.
Well, Gina didn't have the door shut all the way, and it wasn't, or it wasn't locked. So you feel the swerve, you hear a scream, and the door pops open, and Gina falls out in the floor. Now there's nothing showing. I mean, there's nothing because she's covered. Of course, the first thing, she's not going to break the fall. She's going to grab whatever clothes she got. So she was fully dressed when she fell. She goes, "Man, I was on the pot." When I fell off. And of course, it woke everybody up on the bus. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was the jar or the scream.
Yeah.
Only you
Oh
know how,
man. Ooh, we had a bus accident for him. Right, what was that, 92 maybe?
the
And
two, three, yeah.
yeah, that's still very vivid to me. Somebody pulled out in front of us and we rear-ended them. And it was a pretty bad scene, but man, people falling out of bunks and
Dude,
glass
I was in
everywhere.
the,
You always live with that fear of, man, if we have an accident at 70 miles an hour, it's going to be bad. And you hear about it all the time. I mean, you hear about, rock stars and country stars and stuff that have bus accidents, and it's a it's a bad deal.
well, you know what? I remember that night because I was on the very, very top bunk. Uh, my name was on the marquee. What I was doing on the top bunk, I don't know, but it don't matter. That's fine. So anyway, the initial impact woke me up, and I had the presence of mind to grab the inside part of the mattress.
Uh-huh.
I would have fallen out, and I don't know, I might have hurt myself, but I remember that was the first thing I remember because you're thinking about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The movement,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
which reminds me, when we were, this is a For Him story though. We were on the Young Messiah tour, right? And so the two people across from me is Max Lucado and Ron Canoli.
Yeah.
So Max Lucado, if you got Max is a famous Christian art author and has a large church in San Antonio, and Ron Canoli was this really big worship leader.
Oh yeah,
So
one of the biggest at the time, yeah.
Yeah, Max vocalized to us that he was afraid that we were going to have an accident on the bus and he was going to fall out on the floor. Well, the first night we're on the road, you hear Matt, he's having a bad dream, and he's screaming, "No, no, no." And so he wakes up, he stops, and the next night he does the same thing again. No, no, no. And you see Ron Canoli get up, and because he had a dream that we were going off the road and we were all gonna
Yeah.
pass away.
Well, that's again, after that bus accident, I had that emotion for a long time. I'm sure you did too, where it was hard to sleep through the night. Any type of movement or jerk, even on planes, like I would fall asleep on a flight, and any type of turbulence, I would wake up just sweating and just gripping the seats because before that, you get used to it. You're just like, yeah, I can sleep through anything. But it was a good year or so after that bus accident that I could sleep through the night on a bus and kind of get back to normal. You know who else was on that bus with us was Mike English, and Mike
Yeah.
English, that bus was a lot like our. It was kind of a carbon copy of the Truth bus, the one we had, our second bus that we had, and so he was sleeping. We didn't have to sleep head to toe because there weren't many people on the bus, but he was sleeping on the couch. I was sleeping where the dinette was. And about an hour before we had that collision, I remember our bus driver was playing music really loud, and maybe the CB was really loud. And Mike got up. The curtain wasn't closed. There's a curtain that would close off the
Driver's
driver's
seat.
area, right? And I remember Mike getting up and going, "Hey man, it's just a little loud. I'm going to close this curtain." So he closed the curtain about an hour before impact. And had he not done that, he and I would have been covered with wood and glass and shrapnel. I mean, it now our bus driver sustained some injuries, nothing serious, but he had glass all over him. And anyway, I know it's a traumatic
Hey,
experience. I wanted to share some fun stories, so that's not really a fun one, but just to say, it's a weird world traveling. And back then, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have laptops, we didn't have iPads. You know, I had a Game Boy, which, man, I spent most of my money buying batteries for my Game Boy and playing Tetris. We had Walkmans, right?
and
And
you had what video game? What baseball video game were you guys playing all the time?
oh my gosh, we had man, I want to say just an old Nintendo that we hooked up back there, and we would play Tecmo Bowl
Y'all
and
played Nintendo and
World.
everything
Oh yeah,
like real
Worlds.
people.
Yeah. It was always fun pulling up into parking lots because people always assumed there was somebody really famous on your bus, and our bus was purple, and so we had a lot of fun telling people that our road manager would get off. Mike's brother, who's since passed away, uh, would get off and go, "Yeah, Prince's." He just go, "Yeah, Prince is on the bus. He's probably not going to get off, but yeah, this is Prince's bus," and people would believe it.
We talked about the accident, but I mean the accident was not. There's nothing humorous about that. But after the accident, getting to the concert was planes, trains, and
Oh
automobiles.
yeah, it was. It absolutely was. Uh-huh. Well, we had to
Yeah,
walk. First of all, we had to walk like back to the next exit. There's a diner and a truck stop there, and remember we sat there for several hours while was Mike Quistad? Yeah, was Mike Quistad with us then yet?
yeah.
So yeah, Mike Quistad was trying to find a way because we were supposed to be in Sacramento. Which, fun fact, you got to see this. So you'll get to see this if you're watching the video. But give me just a second here. Okay, check this out. It's
I
the
have a
video. It's the poster from that concert in Sacramento with us and Mike English, and there's the date on it. It's October 19th, and that would be 1993.
hey, I have a stack of those that high at my house.
Wow.
I don't know why I have them. I have all of the orchestra, I have the score from the Christmas album.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh
It's
my
sitting in a box
gosh.
in the next bedroom. It's his
Incredible.
manuscript. Yeah,
Wow. You're talking about Ralph Carmichael.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, dude, that's a keepsake. Well, what's crazy about this poster is I was doing an event just a few months ago down in Sacramento with a buddy of mine, and he was telling me he got saved. His mom took him to a For Him concert, and he got saved at his church in Sacramento. And I said, "What year would that have been?" And he was like, "I think it was around 1993." And I'm like, "You have got to be kidding me." Someone just sent me, John Robertson, one of our old promoters. He just sent me that poster, and so I'm gonna send this to him because that was the night he got saved. And I'm like, "How cool is that?" I said,
oh
"But
my God.
yeah." So let's go back to planes, trains, and automobiles. So
Hey,
so
hey, I gotta let him out. I'm gonna leave him out there.
okay,
I got James Bond in here with me.
okay,
Hang
okay,
on, I'll be right back.
okay.
He was just bored.
Okay, you ready?
All right,
All
I'm
right,
ready.
let me give a marker here. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. So, you know, going back to planes, trains, and automobiles, we had a show that night. So this happened at like 6 a.m. Right, and
And
so
the sun was coming up.
right, we were just outside of, I believe we are just outside of Reno. We just left a show in Boise the night before. We were somewhere just east of Reno, Nevada, and so somehow, and I'm going to have Mike Quistat on the pod here because I think people would love to hear road manager stories. Um, so uh, Mike Quistat figures out how to find another coach, and he finds a senior gambling coach that was coming from somewhere with a bunch of seniors going to gamble in Reno, and they pull over to the side of the road, and we get all of our stuff out from underneath the bus, and we put it on that coach, and we're riding with all these seniors to Reno, and they drop off the seniors in Reno, and that bus takes us on to Sacramento, and we get to the church like 45 minutes before the show starts. And I just remember we couldn't shower. We were going through all of our belongings, and we got up. That Mike English for Him show went on as planned, and that's what you did back
Fortunately,
then.
it was a really nice. That was Kent Farron's church.
Yeah, that's right.
Paul.
That's
right. Yeah, they had showers and everything there. What was it? Something First Assembly.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'll look on the poster. It was Capital Christian Center.
Capital Christian Center.
Yep, in Sacramento. Yeah,
that's funny because I worked at PTL with Kent and Paul Farron. Paul Farron was the conductor of the PTL orchestra.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So yeah, those days back in truth were, I mean, they're a blur, but man, I have so many memories of, really great concerts. Gosh, crazy host homes. You remember
you remember some of the food?
well,
Dude, we were up. Where were we going? In Montana or North Dakota? Your brother's in Montana, right?
I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about, hey, have some chicken?
No, this was.
I remember being in Colorado, and he said, here's some chicken, and they were calf fries. They were mountain oysters, and they didn't tell us.
That was Oklahoma.
I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. But
no, because my mom and dad were there.
Oh, well, then probably.
Dude, we go to the. It's cold, and you're burning more calories, and we're all young, and so you're looking forward to the next hot meal. Anything hot, we don't care. If it's spaghetti, which we got a lot of up north.
Yeah.
So we get there, and we're all sitting down. There is nobody in there. Most big churches have the fellowship hall kitchen, commercial kitchen, right? Yeah. We're sitting there. There's nobody there, and we see somebody walk in, and they set their dish down and uncover it, and it's one of those congealed salads with shredded carrots and raisins and that kind of thing. And we're like, okay. 2 people walk in. Both of them have congealed salads.
Yep. I remember this night.
Dude, it was all, I think one person brought a meat dish, but everybody who brought something was a Jell-O congealed salad. I think Roger maybe went and got us Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that too. Roger was very good about saving money. I mean, he was the king of budgeting on the road. And so, every great once in a while, he would work some deal where we got this. I remember being in Florida one time, and it was like this little tiny roadside motel, but it was actually pretty cool because it was right on the water, on the Gulf, somewhere around the Sarasota area. And so every once in a while you get something cool like that, or he'd work out, something in the city, in New York City or in San Francisco or something like that, where we would have this really cool experience. But most of the time it was, I remember the guys would be 4 and 5 to a room. I remember a lot of times 5 guys in a double room, and there would be a
with
rollaway.
a rollaway.
Yeah, with a rollaway. And so, yeah, so there was a lot of that going on. Spend as little money as possible on hotels and meals. But he would go in when we would stop somewhere, and he would get off the bus and say, "God's people, I'll be right back." And he'd get off the bus and he'd go into a Western Sizzlin, and he would negotiate with the manager. And he would come back on the bus and go, "Okay, I made a deal with the manager. I got him tickets for tonight's show. And what he's going to do is he's going to let you order anything off the senior citizens menu."
The deli,
Yeah.
and the deli plate at Piccadilly's.
Yeah, exactly. And no soft drinks. Soft drinks are extra. You can have, God's people can have tea or water. And there's no refill on those teas now. All right. So we're like, okay, I am 21 years old ordering off the senior citizens menu. And I'm like, well, this is my life, isn't it?
The infamous saying, those God's people,
Yeah.
don't get the cheapest, but don't get the most expensive.
Yeah.
Now and the reason I'm not sure, but I think the reason was Marty, because if you didn't put a limit on Marty would be having steak and lobster at the.
Oh, he was famous for it.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. He would too. There's some stories there, but we won't go there with Marty. But yeah, I remember, and I remember in those early days before him, it was crazy because some places we did like 250 shows that first years for him, but we were just kind of following all the places that Truth had been the last couple of years.
I think the number was 275.
Wow, crazy. And I remember I was the accountant or the bookkeeper for the first couple of years, and I just remember some of those concerts they paid us $500, and that was barely enough to get us to pay our expenses, and but it was like, well, we'll sell T-shirts and CDs, and that's where we made our cassettes. That's where we really made our money, was at the product table. But a lot of these promoters were just like hanging on by a thread, bringing us in, and they would have like, tamales and a bag of corn, unshucked corn, sitting backstage for us. We're like, okay, well, this will feed us, but we're gonna need something a little bit different, So is there anything that, or they just wouldn't have anything at all, and we'd have to send people out last minute, just go, wait, we got to eat,
You remember the time that we did a concert? It was sponsored by the local radio station, and so it was their fundraiser period of time. I forgot what they call it.
Yeah.
To get partners and that kind of thing.
Share-a-thon.
Share-a-thon.
Like mm-hmm.
So, but we're not going to make a lot of money because we're going to give the money to the radio station, blah, blah, blah. So what you're talking about, we sell T-shirts and hats and stuff. So we get to the venue, and we set up, do sound check and all that. And what we didn't know, that the promoter didn't tell us, is they weren't giving tickets. When you bought your ticket was the T-shirt they sent you.
I saw you post about this the other day.
I don't think we sold one T-shirt that night. Somebody put that on Facebook. Somebody still has the T-shirt. It was in Detroit. It was up somewhere in North.
Yeah, Maine. I think it was in Maine or something like that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So speaking in Maine, I remember when we took Jackie Velasquez and her band out with us, and we did a concert it was either Portland or Bangor, somewhere up in that area. Really great church, and they surprised us with a lobster dinner for everybody on tour. So between us and Jackie and our band and crew, there were probably, I don't know, 30 people on that tour, and they had a 2-pound lobster for everyone on tour. And so
huge tray, I remember it.
Yeah, and it was just like, this is heaven. Like,
we're off.
Yeah.
Yeah, steaks too.
And I remember telling Jackie about this several years ago when I was talking to her, laughing about it. But her and her band came in, they went, gross. We can't eat that. And we were like, guys, it's lobster. I mean, it's like, do you know how much this costs somewhere else? It's Maine lobster. And and they were just like, can we can somebody go to McDonald's? Or, I mean, they were just like, can somebody go out and get us like some real food? And they
You just
did. The
wasted
promoter
on
was
it.
very kind, and they did. And I just remember you and I and Marty sat backstage for 2 hours. I mean, it was through our dinner time and through Jackie's concert, and we may even come back because we went on after Jackie after the intermission. So there was a good hour by the time she got on, about before and we got on, and we stuffed ourselves, man. We were like, we're gonna let as few of these lobsters go to waste as possible. I just remember that day just going, if this is like one of the greatest moments of my life, just sitting here, just cracking those things open. And I mean, we made ourselves sick on those things.
Oh man, it was they were good. I think Mike Quistad, a road manager, made a deal with a promoter. They were short of money, or oh no, we gave the caterer free tickets. They made a deal. Look, if we get lobster, we'll get you and your family and some of your friends in. Dude, I remember the tray. The tray was like this giant
Yeah.
metal tray, and they were lined up.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
gosh,
yeah.
I'm starving.
Let's go
I'm
back.
going to.
Time to go back to
I'm
Maine.
I'm going to drive 10 minutes and go get some really good seafood.
Yeah, because you live in Mobile. You still live in Mobile. And
Yeah,
man, that's a thing that I miss living there. We love it in Tulsa, but man, when we come down to Mobile, that's just all we're going to do is eat shrimp and crab claws and fresh fish. And it is, to me, Mobile and that area is has the best seafood I've ever had anywhere.
hey, when you come back, there's a place right around the place from the church. Andy came to our church at least twice,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and
Are you talking
and
about Cravers?
yeah, Cravers.
Oh,
Did
Cravers is
did
awesome.
you eat there?
Oh yeah, I've been
You
there
know
several
what's
times.
you know what's funny is that I've been trying. Every time we have a rehearsal, I go, hey, why don't you let this person sing the verse? I'll sing the verse, and they sing the high part to get one of the girls. And that's old school.
Yeah.
Until you came in and we did it. He goes, "How did you guys do that?" Well, because I sang the verse, and Andy came and started singing that high chorus in
Yep.
overdrive. That's how that happens.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It,
we had a
it
little.
was.
Yeah, we knew what we were doing back then. It's just so fun when we still get back together because, man, all that stuff just falls back into place. We hear each other. We know each other's tendencies. We can match, what the other one's doing. And I just did a show last night with Grady Nichols, my friend Kelly Ford, and it was really fun. It was a Christmas show. We sold out the Maybe Center in Tulsa, and it was really fun. But what we didn't have was that what we used to have with For Him
The
was that
cohesion.
you could get cohesion where you could almost match up vibratos, or there was just this way to get in and out of moments that we just had when you tour it, and so we had a lot of fun. But I did get a little like bucket list thing happen to me that night last night
Are you going to
because
share?
yeah,
Cause yeah, well, I'm gonna let
yeah.
you say it.
All right, yeah. So, the sax player who headlined the night, it's called the Grady Nichols Christmas Show, and I've been doing some shows with Grady now for the last several years as his main singer, and he got to play on a live Kenny Loggins project about 2 years ago. Kenny came down and did a little private recording at Church Studios here in Tulsa, and through connections. So we know a lot of Kenny's band. Scott Bernard on guitar, Chris Rodriguez, who's been on Kenny's tour on and off for the last 15 years.
One of his former road managers is a
Uh-huh,
very good
yeah,
friend of ours.
yeah. And so we know a lot of people around Kenny. Well, Kenny for me is like he is my number one vocal hero. So back in the day when someone would say, "You kind of sound like Kenny Loggins," I'd be like, "Yes, that's what I'm going for." I mean, it's like, and even go
Dude,
back further. Oh my
Vox
gosh.
Humana, man.
Well, which Michael Amardian produced on, who
Yeah.
produced a lot for us. Yeah.
Forever, forever in your arms. Dum,
Yep.
dum, dum, dum. Oh
Yep.
gosh.
Oh yeah, such good stuff. And actually got to meet Kenny the first time. Man, it's back in the early 2000s. We were in Arizona. We were in Phoenix. We had a night off,
Yeah, you didn't
And
call me. You didn't call my room. And I went,
I
you went where and did what?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Uh yeah, we went, I think man, Chris Rodriguez got us tickets and we went back to meet Kenny after the show, and I'm like hyperventilating because I'm like, this is my hero walking up. And he said it was right after our hymns record came out. And uh and when Kenny came up, Chris said, "Hey Kenny, these are the guys I was telling you about. I gave you their hymns record." And Kenny shook my hand, looked me straight in the eye, and said, "Oh man, I love your vocals on that record." And I was like, "All right, I'm done. I am completely done. I don't have to do anything else in my career. My vocal hero just said he heard what I did and he
I'm
liked it."
retiring tomorrow.
That's right. So now, fast forward to what happened last night. Um, we Grady and I, as we were producing this show and putting it together, I said, Kenny gave you his phone number. I said, have you guys texted back and forth? He goes, nah, not really. He said, I think he was just being nice. I said, dude, if he gave you his phone number, you should at least try and text him and just see, what level he will respond to you. So he did. And Kenny responded within 5 minutes, just said, hey, man, I remember that. That was so cool. Man, you're a great player, all that stuff. And I said, oh, you're in. I said, because he didn't ignore it and he didn't just give it a thumbs up, right? He actually took time to respond to you. I said, what if, because we were going to do Celebrate Me Home for this Christmas show. I said, what if we could get Kenny to say hello to Tulsa and do a little iPhone video for our sold out crowd in Tulsa? So he texts him back and tells him all this information about the show. Lisa Bain Ministries, who was the benefactor for the show, and anyway, Kenny does the video, but he doesn't just say hello Tulsa, Merry Christmas. He goes, hello Andy, hello Grady, and then talks about the Christmas and talks about Celebrate Me Home. And he says, and Andy Chrisman is going to sing it for you now, and I know Andy's going to do a fine job. And I mean, when I saw that video, when it came back, I'm literally on the floor, my heart pounding out of my chest, just going, I just can't, I can't believe it. So anyway, it was a big hit last night.
Dude, that is awesome. Same thing on a smaller level with me and we Beth and I were on the way to the beach, and if you don't know where Mobile is, we're an hour and 45 minutes from some of the best beaches in the world.
Yeah,
probably the top 10. So anyway, we're on our
Riviera.
way to Redneck Riviera.
Yep.
So we're on our way to the beach. We're nearly there, and they have a place called the Wharf.
Yep.
And it's a big outdoor amphitheater, and they have everybody there, everybody. So as we're going, we see a billboard, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Chicago. So if you didn't see that tour they did together, it was incredible. They wound up doing each other's songs, and so of course, the two of the influences of my life are Russ Taff and Bill Champlin. Bill Champlin is the guy who sings "Hard Habit to Break." That guy with the big raspy. So anyway, we go, and they are on that night. I mean, it's just, and I'm going to listen with critical ears because, anyway, I've heard both.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Well, I've heard both of those groups do really well, and then they would just be awful. But that night, oh my gosh, they were incredible. So the next day, I got to tell you this: they're doing. You hear the introduction come for "Hard Habit to Break," and the lady behind me and her husband are just toasted out of their mind, and he's 6'8", 400 pounds. I mean, he's a monster of a man, and the Peter Cetera sings the verses, right? So he starts singing, well, Jason Schiff.
Yeah.
And she starts singing with him. The drunk lady behind me starts singing. And I turned around going, I'm going to kill you if you don't stop singing.
That's and extreme.
Her husband dropped his beer. He was laughing so hard because he didn't want to hear her sing. Of course, I did it laughing. I just said, if you don't stop singing, I'm going to kill you. That's my song.
I had that happen. I went to a Tears for Fears show, and they're like my favorite band of all time. I went to Tears for a Tears for Fears show in Tulsa a couple of years ago, and the same kind of the opposite thing happened. I was singing my guts out, and this drunk lady in front of me turned around and said, "You got an incredible voice." She said, "And I'm glad because you're singing blanking loud." I went, "Thank you. I
Thanks for.
appreciate that."
So anyway, the next morning I'm on Facebook, and I go, oh, I wonder if Bill Champlin. I'm just gonna leave a message.
Yeah.
I go in there. I go, hey, Bill, big fan. You sang your tail off. That's all I said. And actually I messaged him, Messenger.
Uh-huh.
And so the next day I get a response. Not, I wasn't looking for one. He goes, hey, I noticed at that point on my Facebook, had a shot of for him, and it was just a shot of me. He
Yeah.
said, well, do you sing it? Your profile picture leads me to believe that. I go, yeah, I did. And so he goes, he messaged me back. He says, well, who do you sing with? I told him I was in Christian music. I had to sing
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I sing in this group called For Him. And so I didn't hear from him that day. The next day, he sends me his home and mobile number. And what had happened is that he's really good buddies with Michael English.
Oh yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he had actually heard our stuff. And so we talked a little bit about Peter Wolf, and
Uh-huh.
because they had just finished that record,
Yeah.
remember?
Yep.
Chicago finished a record with a producer we worked in LA with in LA, but it was like, yeah.
Yeah.
He did all the talking. I won't tell you some of the stuff he says. He has other language.
He has a colorful vocabulary.
Colorful, yes.
That's really cool, man. That is really cool. It's
that's the second time I talked to him.
wow. It's funny how many times talk about Scott Bernard, who is the lead guitar player and main backup singer for Kenny Loggins. When we went to his show a couple of years ago, it was Kenny and Michael McDonald just put on a great show, and I bought like a dum dum. I bought tickets to it, and then when I got there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know half of Michael's band and I know half of Kenny's band up there, but I didn't know Scott yet. And so as soon as the concert was over, I just went to the edge of the stage, and Carl Hergesell, remember Carl? Carl was,
Yeah.
yeah, so Carl was up there breaking his keyboard rig down, and I just went, Carl, and he turned around and went, Chrisman, what are you doing here? And then here comes Chris Rodriguez. He's like, bruh, why didn't you tell me you're going to be here? Come on backstage and meet Kenny. And so, yeah, so it's the second time I get to meet him. But I go back there, and on my way, as I'm standing there waiting, I'm talking to Raj and waiting to go back to see Kenny. I hear, I won't bend and I won't break. I won't water down my. I turn around, it's Scott Bernard, and I'm like, what is happening right now? And if you've seen Scott, big dude, long hair, long beard, like serious, like, and just one of the most masterful musicians I've ever heard live. And I was like, what is happening right now? And he goes, dude, you're Andy Chrisman For Him. He's like, I grew up on your music, bro. I would not be where I am today without the music of For Him. I just want to tell you, thank you.
Wow.
We've been friends ever since. I'm just like, it's crazy how many people are out there in the music industry that know about For Him, and For Him was a part of their journey. And it's interesting as we get so much older, a lot of the people that were on their journeys around the time that we were, they're older too. So I think sometimes as these artists get older, they let their guard down a little bit. They let a little more people into their lives, and we start to look back and go and appreciate those connections of the people who really influenced us and kind of helped us in our journeys. And it sounds like you've had a lot of those situations too, where you walk into somewhere where you're just like, I'm not gonna say who I am because they wouldn't care or know. And they're like, oh no, I grew up on your music. Oh my gosh, Where There's Faith, Future Generations, Basics of Life, Strange Way to Save the World. Like, it's crazy how many people heard our music. And, we can look back and go, yeah, we didn't have the most album sales. We didn't have the most, this or that. We weren't on TV all the time. We never got to do, I just had First Call on, and they talked about, doing the Tonight Show and just all the really cool things they got to
We
do. We
were
never,
just we were just with the wrong record company, I
well,
think,
we
at
that
that
that's a whole
point.
other story.
Yeah,
That
that's a
is
whole
definitely,
nother.
yeah.
You know,
But
my
we,
neighbor that just moved from San Diego, he's been there for a month. Somebody told him, I don't know who, that I was in For Him. San Diego, California, they're huge For Him fans.
wow.
Huge For Him fans. He said, you in For Him? Because I saw him that when they were moving in, you wave,
Hmm.
But I didn't tell him because I was in For Him, don't you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Or what?
Yeah. Yeah. You never want to lay down that card and then somebody go, who? Oh, yeah, no, never heard of you. Yeah.
Dude,
That
when
you,
we were in Truth, we bought we I don't know what you would call it. We it was Kenny G and Michael Bolton, and we took the Truth bus in, and they let us through.
oh
Do
my
you
gosh.
remember that?
I do.
We didn't. I don't think we had tickets or anything. And Paul Glasgow, you know, we pull
Yes.
up to the gate. They didn't
Yeah.
even look at us twice. We had a tour bus.
Yeah.
It just looked like one of the tour
Yep.
buses, and we got him backstage.
Okay,
We, we,
that reminds me of a story. You weren't a part of this, but Mark and I were when we got nominated for a Grammy for The Message. Uh, our label, to their credit, flew us to New York City because it was at Madison. The Grammys were at Madison Square Garden.
oh,
Flew
yeah.
us to New York City. Bill Baumgart, our A&R guy, came up with us. Was going to go to the ceremony,
Mike
and
Atkins.
yeah, no, Bill Baumgart came up.
Mike
I
was
don't.
there
Did
with
Mike
us.
there? Oh yeah, Mike was there with us. That's
Yeah, he
right.
was sitting in, but yeah, he was sitting up there with us.
So they arranged limos to take us to drop us off at the front of Madison Square Garden where we could go in for the pre-show, which is where our nomination was. And you and Marty were in one limo with Bill and maybe Mike, and then Jackie and I and Mark and Jody were in another limo. And so your limo was in front of us and went towards the entrance where we were supposed to go in. Our limo driver went toward the VIP entrance, and we were just like, oh no, we're not supposed. He goes, no, 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 this is where I'm supposed to drop the artist off. And we're like, okay. So there's these checkpoints along the way, and he's rolling down the windows like, who do you have in there? I have For Him, and they're like looking through the list, going, we don't see a For Him. No, 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 they're nominated. They're supposed to be here. He talks his way through to where now we are in line to get out where all the cameras are, where it's like the red carpet. Okay, we're getting off in the red carpet area for the Grammys, and we can hear in front of us. We hear, ladies and gentlemen, Sting, and Sting gets out of his limo, and there's all these paparazzi and there's crowds there, and everybody's applauding and screaming, ladies and gentlemen, Celine Dion, and everybody's cry, and then you hear, ladies and gentlemen, For Him, crickets, crickets. And we get out of the limo and go, wow, this is crazy. And they file us down the interview line. And Jackie says to this day, she remembers walking up behind Sting and going, like smelling his cologne, going, oh, he smells good. And like we're like walking, and nobody wants to talk to us, right? So we just kind of make our way. We're like making our way down the corridor. Then we get to the stage door, and guess who's at the stage door going in backstage? Is Stephen Curtis Chapman. And Steven's like, buddies, oh my God, y'all come on in with me. Yeah, because he was hosting the pre show awards where the Christian music ones were going to be. And he's guiding us into the backstage area, and security stops us and goes, where are your credentials? And we went, yeah, we don't have any. And Steven just keeps walking, man. He doesn't even turn around and help us through. He just keeps on going. And they shut the door on us. We have to walk all the way around Madison Square Garden to the other side. And when we get to our seats, you guys are like, "Where you guys been?" And we're like, yeah, we got a pretty amazing story here." So,
That's funny. That's the night that Celine Dion sang "All by Myself."
yep,
That was
brought the
that.
house down.
Oh my
Oh my gosh,
God!
that um uh
David Foster was on the
yep.
piano.
And he fell. As soon as the cameras went off, he went to get up from the piano and he tripped and went down to his knees, and we all had a big laugh after that. But that was never on camera. Oh yeah, Natalie Cole sang "Unforgettable" that night.
Yeah,
I remember Smashing Pumpkins sang
remember
1979 that night.
remember Hillary Clinton getting spoken word.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
And I remember Beck sang whatever the song is, "Two Turntables and a Microphone."
right.
That was one of the best experiences that we've ever been in.
What was the Tracy? Was it Tracy Chapman?
Tracy Chapman.
She won a Grammy that night. I remember.
Wow, wow. So that would have been like 1997,
Seven,
probably. Yeah.
7 or 8.
Yeah. Well, we've gotten to do a lot of crazy things and really cool things. And I just wanted to take some time. I mean, we literally could sit here for 3 hours and talk, and maybe we'll do it again. But I just thought it'd be fun for our listeners to hear, you know, just maybe one or two or three stories of what life was like back then and some of the memories that we carry. We carry the bad ones along with the good ones. And then the bad ones become good memories too, just because they're a
They
part of our
become
story and they make you
well.
laugh. You get them far enough. Yeah.
They become funny.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, that back, when it happened, it's like, oh man, that was terrible. And now it's like, it's
Well,
like
yeah. Anything you survive and get past, what is it? If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. I think,
stronger.
if it didn't kill you, it turns out to be funny. And
Uh,
I think we have a lot of those stories where we're just like, man, God, you blessed us and got us through that. And we're grateful that we're still working and breathing and singing and making music. I love what you're doing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing there at your studio in
well,
Mobile?
I sing at a church part time. I don't know, for lack of better words, a hired gun, I guess. And then I have I'm a producer. I'm actually doing a project right now for Russell DeShields, who is a former Truth member, was the
Uh-huh.
in 74, 75, and was the drummer at PTL for many, many years. And I'm about to do a project for Jim Van Meter. Remember him?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, about to do after January 1st. So this is just this is where I work. Um, we For him, actually, we did quite a few of the vocals on 3 records here.
Yeah, that's right.
On the
Yeah.
last record, Michael Omardian came in with his engineer Terry Christian, and we cut vocals right out in the living room and in the
Yep.
bedroom.
Yep.
Had a great time. Ate a lot of seafood. Mark's
We sure
mom
did.
made seafood, and my mama fixed banana cream and key lime pie. And we
I
ate
do remember
ourselves.
that. Yep, I do remember that. Those were good times. Crazy that you just had Michael Marty and camping out in your house, one of the great producers of all
Dude,
time.
I was freaked out the whole time. Um, well, yeah, the people who are watching, imagine your favorite artist producer. I mean, because Andy and I come from a generation of people, we read album covers.
Yeah.
And we were huge because Michael Omardian produced, I mean, he sold 350 million records in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
Yeah. And then to have him in this is my little project studio. It's a 12 by 13 room. That was something else.
Yeah.
I have pictures.
Yeah, picture to prove it. Prove that he was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible. Well, we'll get back to this again sometime. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I
Man,
love you, brother.
anytime.
It's
I love you, buddy.
it's always fun to sit around and share these stories, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah. I love you, buddy. It is so good. It's good to spend time with you anytime.